All right. Wait here for some of my students to come in. My notification that I am live. Well, good morning. A little late, but I'd like to say I'm still on time. I feel like I'm Gandalf the Grey. I arrived precisely when I meant to, albeit, some define to be a little late, but I am here. So, welcome to today's Read-Aloud. My students that are still trickling in, thank you for coming. Hopefully your Tuesday's off to a good start. That things are going well. Hopefully your distance learning experience is a little bit better this week. So I think we're all still learning with this, remote teaching, remote learning, distance learning, whatever you want to call it. It's very much a learning process of what everyone is able to do, what does everyone need, and trying to meet everybody where they're at. I'd say so far things are going pretty well. It's not perfect, but I think each day gets a little bit better. So I hope for you families, things have been getting a little bit better at home with this. I have heard that, some families still said that they haven't gotten their package yet. I do apologize for that. Unfortunately, I don't have control over our mail delivery system, but I understand that the mail is running a little bit slower now. So hopefully you guys will get your packets soon, and that could be another option for some of you to be able to do your learning activities. Though I am very pleased and very impressed with what many of you have been able to do on Dojo, answering my activity prompts. Some of you guys are giving very detailed responses to some of the things I've posted, especially last week's paragraph of the week for you to design your own underground layer. Some of you guys got very creative with that. I haven't posted another paragraph topic this week, but that's because I haven't come across one that I like that I thought would be very creative for you guys. So when I come across one, I'll probably post that one later, but I'll probably wait till next week. But what I've been most pleased is some of you guys are answering some of your discussion questions, like, your 3 facts for watching one of my social studies videos. And you guys have been making videos of, your verbal responses, which I've really liked. It's been very creative to those of you that have been using the video. So I'd say going forward, if you guys want to do it as a video, because you have a hard time typing out your response, that could be a way that you could go. And if you're creative with it, I'll enjoy it. All right. Enough about that. We'll pick right back up where we left off. And Teddy had some interesting things happen with him. He sat with the popular kids at lunch as Ethan and Dash, the 2 football players, invited him to eat with them. And, considering that those 2 saved him from Tim Jim and Vance, that's the least Teddy could do. He learned that, just like Summer McCracken, they're normal kids. They're not different from him. Though his friend Xavier made it very clear, who also ate with him, like, oh, these kids are they're the royalty, man. They're not like us. They're not like, us, lower clique, as it were. They asked a lot of questions about living at Fun Jungle, about his parents. They asked a lot about his ankle bracelet. He found out that he was a YouTube star because one of the videos that was posted for the whole calamity at Koalaville, when Marge and Bubba Stackhouse went through the glass enclosure that was Kazoo's enclosure, Teddy and his dad were featured quite prominently in that video, and that's why kids have been staring at him. Of course, we got to the topic of Summer McCracken. That's when the head cheerleader, Violet, wanted to get in contact with her. So Teddy, trying to be the good friend, not wanting to use his friendship relationship with Summer that way, kind of like, I don't know if she's going to be back anytime soon. But Violet gave Teddy her number, which Xavier thought was a big deal. Teddy didn't. It's like, she just wants to talk to Summer. It had nothing to do with me. So then we get to the next chapter, which I believe, was chapter 13, where Teddy returned from school, and he went into Fun Jungle, because obviously lives in the back lot. But he goes to the dressing rooms for the characters of Fun Jungle, the actors. And he decides to put on the costume of Kazoo the koala, because A, it's about his size, that he could fit into it. Number two, it gives him the opportunity to walk around Fun Jungle, and no one's going to look twice at him, because he's an animal character that's roaming around the park, just like any of the other ones. So he goes to Koalaville. He's trying to find, is there another way in and out that the security cameras didn't record? And he finds that there's no other way in and out of this place. He, however, sees a man in an orange Houston Astros baseball cap who's looking very suspicious. In fact, he was also in that YouTube video. So Teddy follows him, and he is talking to another park employee. He can't hear what is being said, but it's definitely suspicious. He's talking to the guy that was in the stage show that was antagonizing animals to attack him, Freddie Malloy. So he doesn't know what that's about. He also overheard a phone conversation with the guy from Carnivore Canyon, the man who turned him and his dad into Marge. He was on the phone trying to make some sort of deal that was... He claimed that he could get fired for doing what he is offering to do to the person on the phone. Again, we have no idea what that's about either. But Ben tried to follow Astros Cap guy out of the park, and he ended up losing him for a period. But then he ran into him because Astros Cap was waiting right for him. And that's where we ended the chapter yesterday. So we're going to pick up with chapter 14, and it's titled Larry the Lizard Returns. Astros Cap completely caught me by surprise. Between the darkness and the kazoo head, I could barely see as it was. He ambushed me easily, grabbing me by the fur and slamming me against the wall of Polar Pavilion. "Why are you following me?" he demanded. Because he was much taller than me, I couldn't see his face through the downward angled mask. He had a strong Texan accent, though. "I'm not," I said quickly, though I still had the presence of mind to use a gruff voice, hoping he wouldn't realize that I was a kid. "I'm just working." "Don't give me that bull," Astros Cap growled. "I know a tale when I see one. Now tell me the truth, or I will hurt you." He held one of his hands where I could see it. It was clenched into a fist. I gulped. I had made it most of my life without anyone shaking a fist in my face, and now it happened twice in one day. I didn't think to tell Astros Cap the truth would make him any happier with me, though, so I tried lying again. "I swear, I wasn't following you. I'm only an actor." "I warned you," Astros Cap withdrew from sight, then slammed into the koala nose hard enough to dent it. Luckily for me, Astros Cap wasn't that bright. Apparently, he realized that punching the koala in the face wouldn't actually hurt me. The blow still knocked me off balance, however. I stumbled and already top heavy the costume and tumbled backward, landing in the landscaping. Astro's Gap loomed over me. Now that I was on the ground, he looked prepared to kick me. My body didn't have nearly as much protection in the costume as my head did. Wait, I said, please. You had your chance to talk, Astro's Cap snarled, then cocked back his leg. Hey, someone yelled. Leave Kazoo alone. Since I was on my back, the mouth of my mask was angled up toward Astro's Cat. Behind him, I could see one of the families I had posed for. The father was the one who'd shouted. His wife was shielding the eyes of their two children from the sight of a grown man beating up their favorite koala. Astro's Cat turned to face the father at face. This doesn't concern you, amigo. Mind your own business and move along. The father didn't back down. Instead, he turned and yelled at some of the other tourists, Hey, some psycho's beating up Kazoo. Within seconds, dozens of other people rushed to his side. Most are parents, though a few park employees were now in the mix. They all gasped upon seeing Astro's Cap looming over me and then grew very angry. I'm only going to say that one more time, the father told Astro's Cap. Leave Paula alone. What's wrong with you? A mother demanded. This is a family park. Don't hurt Yogi, yelled the German father, who still didn't know who I was supposed to be. Now that he was outnumbered, Astro's Cap wasn't so tough anymore. He raised his hand, signaling to the others to back down. Hold on, he said meekly. This is all just a big misunderstanding. There's no need to get nasty. Yes, there is, I yelled. He stole my wallet. The mob grew even angrier. You mugged an innocent koala? A grandmother shouted at Astro's Cap. Get him, one of the park employees yelled. Astro's Cap ran for it. Several of the adults went after him. Astro's Cap crashed through the landscaping and made it to Adventureland just ahead of the mob, which pursued him toward the front gates like hounds going after a rabbit. The other adults came to my side. Are you all right? A mother asked. No, I said. Could you help me out of this costume? I knew it might cause trouble to reveal my identity, but there was no time for caution. I needed to learn who Astro's Cap was, and I couldn't do it dressed like a koala. Someone popped the head off of my costume. Everyone reacted with surprise. You're just a kid, the father gasped. After school job, I lied, and then wriggled out of the rest of the costume and bolted after Astro's Cap. He and his pursuers were well ahead of me, but I poured on the speed. Without the bulky, heavy costume, I suddenly felt 100 times lighter. Plus, after so much time in a stuffy suit, the fresh night air was invigorating. Astro's Gap was most likely heading for the park's main exit. There was really no other purpose for him to go. Place for him to go. Everyone came to Fun Jungle by car, and the only place for guests to park was a giant lot out in the front. The crowd grew thicker as we went, as everyone was funneling the same way. Astro's Cap ducked and jibbed through the other people, trying to shake his pursuers. I lost sight of him in the crowd. Luckily, I knew a shortcut. I veered between the Carnival Midway and the Nocturnal Animals building. There was an access to the employee area between them. I shot through it and cut behind a few exhibits to the employee exits. I emerged outside the front gates just in time to see Astro's Cap barge through. The thug was in such a hurry he was shoving people aside, even young kids and old ladies. He managed to lose the mob pursuing him, however. They all must have been stuck back in the crowd. Astro's Cap darted into the parking lot. I paralleled him through the lines of cars, keeping a safe distance. He hadn't seen me without the koala costume on, so he wouldn't recognize me, but then I already been caught following him once that day, and it wasn't. It was so dark now that Astro's Cap finally had to remove his sunglasses. But in the dimly lit parking lot, I still couldn't get a look at him. We zigzagged through the cars until we reached a gazelle giraffe section, where Astro's Cap quickly ducked into a white sedan. I hurried over as he started the engine, revving right before he slammed the pedal down and peeled away. I had just enough time to memorize the license plate. Texas SDP 5967. Then I turned around and headed right back for the park. It was now well after 5, which meant my parents would soon be looking for me. As I crossed the parking lot, I dialed Summer McCracken. I wasn't expecting to get her, thinking I'd leave a message, but to my surprise, she answered on the second ring. "Hey," she said, "I've been waiting to hear from you." "You have?" I asked. "Of course. How did the investigation go today? Did my plan for you to go undercover work? You didn't chicken out, did you?" "No," I said a bit too defensively. "I did exactly what we talked about, and it worked just fine." "Ha!" Summers. Yeah. "I told you it would. So, did you find out who stole Kazoo?" "Maybe. I need a little bit of help from you, though. Can you write something down for me?" "Give me a second." I heard Summer scrambling for a pencil. "Okay, shoot." "I need you to find the owner of a car with the license plate Texas SDP 5967. There was a pause while Summer copied that down. "Got it. I'll send it to my dad right away. I'm sure he knows someone who can handle it. But he'll need to know why I'm asking for it. Is it the koala thieves?" "It could be," I told Summer. I told Summer all about Freddie Malloy and Astros Cap as I had re-entered Fun Jungle. It took longer than I expected, as Summer could never let me go more than three sentences without asking a question. By the time I'd explained everything, I was back by a polar pavilion again. "So you really think this Astros Cat guy is our man?" Summer asked me. "I don't know," I admitted, "but he's certainly up to something around here. Someone ought to look into it, and I know Marge won't. If I gave her this info, all she'd do would be to try to arrest me for impersonating a koala." "You're probably right," Summer laughed, "but Daddy will get to the bottom of this. I'll make sure of it." "You did good work, Teddy. I wish I could have been more help." "You helped plenty," I reassured her. "I never would have found Astro's Cap if you hadn't thought for me to dress up as Kazoo." "That was pretty brilliant, wasn't it?" Summer teased. "There's just one thing," I said. "When you tell your dad about the license plate, you probably shouldn't tell him I'm the one who gave it to you." "But I'd have to," Summer countered. "How else would he believe I got the info?" "He already threatened to fire my parents if I did any more investigating. You think he'd be pleased if I stole a kazoo costume and wandered around the park in it?" "That was my idea. I'll own up to it. But I did it. Can't you just make something up?" "I could try, but knowing Daddy, he'll figure out the truth anyhow." "Hold on." It sounded like someone had just entered Summer's room. I heard them say something, after which Summer groaned. "Sorry, Teddy, I've got to go. It's supposed to be study time here, which means no phone calls." "Since when do you care about rules?" I asked. "Since I got put on probation," Summer answered, now keeping her voice low. "I got busted for sneaking out after curfew last week. If anything else happens, they'll boot me out of here, and Daddy will have a cow. Thanks for calling with an update. I'll let you know the moment we hear anything." Summer hung up before I could even say goodbye. I tucked my phone back into my pocket and then trudged into the landscaping beside Polar Pavilion. The kazoo costume laid crumpled right where I had abandoned it. There was no one around. Everyone who had witnessed the attack had apparently gone home. I figured I should return the costume to its rightful place. If someone noticed it was missing, Marge might comb through the security footage and find me entering the changing room. It was easier to wear it in than carry it, though, so I quickly pulled it on and hurried back across the park. There were no longer any tourists to stop me, so I made good time and was soon back at the changing room. No one was there, which wasn't surprising. The actors tended to make off the moment their shifts had ended. And it was now well after closing time. I pulled off my koala pelt and hung it on the wall. Before I could make it out the door, however, Charlie Connor entered. He was wearing his old Larry the Lizard costume, although since it was after park hours, he had the head tucked under his arm and a cigar in his mouth. Charlie was normally in a bad mood, but it got considerably worse upon seeing me. He stopped in his tracks and pointed accusingly. You! What are you doing here? I stuttered for a moment, scrambling to come up with something. Then I realized I actually had a legitimate reason to be here. I, I was looking for you. Me? Charlie's eyes suddenly lit up with understanding. Oh no, this this is about that missing koala, isn't it? Yes, I said. Of course. Charlie stormed past me and threw his lizard head up onto the shelf and unzipped the costume. There's been a crime, so naturally you're playing detective again. Well, just like last time, I didn't do anything. I had no beef with that koala. Christy Sullivan says you did. Charlie froze in shock halfway out of his costume. He looked like a mutant lizard shedding its skin. She ratted me out. That girl's a piece of work. First, she refuses to go out with me on the grounds that I'm a little person. She refused because you tried to scam Fun Jungle. That was a legitimate injury claim, and the Slazy Park rejected it. Charlie angrily kicked the rest of the costume. Even if it wasn't on the up and up, doesn't mean make me a koala napper. If you want to know who did that, maybe you ought to look at Christy herself. What? I asked. Christy wouldn't steal Kazoo. She loves him. Exactly, Charlie told me. She was always going on about how adorable he was and how she'd be so upset when the time came for him to go back to Australia. More than once she told me that she might swipe him so she could keep him forever. I'm sure she was just joking. Was she? Because the koala's gone, and she had better access to his exhibit than anyone else. I started to counter that, but then I bit my lip, realizing that Charlie had a point. The real reason I discounted Christy as a potential thief was because I liked her. But just because someone was nice, or at least pretending to be nice, didn't mean they couldn't do something wrong. But she was so worried about him, I began. Smoke and mirrors, kid. Totally threw you off, I guess, but let me ask you something else. Why'd you say I took Kazoo? To shake the park down for a few million? Yeah. Then where's the ransom note? Charlie asked. That's the number one rule of kidnapping, isn't it? Ask for a ransom, and if you don't do it, you don't get the money. But there isn't a note. Therefore, either the kidnapper is an idiot, which I am not, or Kazoo wasn't kidnapped at all. I nodded, understanding, but added, you could still make money off of a stolen koala. How? By selling it? Charlie laughed. Right. Exactly how easy do you think it is to fence a koala? I shrugged. It's impossible, Charlie said. It's not like there's a couple hundred koalas for sale on eBay every day, and I could just slip Kazoo in there without him being noticed. Right now, there's exactly one koala at large in this country, and at the very moment whoever tries to sell it, every cop, fed, and animal rights activist is going to come down on them. Not if Flora Hancock had already hired you to steal it for her. Charlie seemed legitimately confused by this. I don't know any Flora Peacock. Flora Hancock, I repeated. The rich lady from Waco who collects exotic animals? Never heard of her. Either Charlie was being honest or he was one heck of an actor. You sure? I asked, because she spent a lot of time in Koalaville. So did plenty of people. I didn't meet any of them. I just stood around in that stinking koala suit and let people take my picture. I tried to say something else, but Charlie cut me off. Besides, if this fancy pants collector really did want Kazoo, why would she come to me? I don't know squat about stealing koalas. Long ago, I was a two-bit mugger and took cash and joy. Nothing more intricate than that. I've been clean for over 5 years now. I'm trying to live a normal, law-abiding life, which isn't easy when every time there's a crime, you start pointing fingers at me because I'm the only criminal that you know. Christy said you had a plan to bilk Fun Jungle. Charlie backed down a bit, busted. All I was going to do was inflate my hours a bit. That's not exactly the crime of the century, and for your information, I never actually did it. I only bragged about having a plan to impress Christy. Being a schmo who dresses like a marsupial for a living wasn't exactly knocking her socks off. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for Charlie, and then I caught myself. After all, Charlie had tried to con Fun Jungle with a bogus medical claim, which meant he wasn't exactly law-abiding. And he mentioned Kazoo as a potential money-making target to Christy. Or had he? If Christy had taken Kazoo, then she had certainly picked the right person to divert my attention from her. In fact, she picked two people. And right now, of those two, Freddie Malloy was the only one who really looked like he was up to no good. He was the one who had been talking to Astros Cap, not Charlie Connor. The idea of Charlie stealing Kazoo on behalf of Flora Hancock now seemed quite far-fetched, although not completely impossible. You're not the only criminal I know, I said. There's also Freddie Malloy. Charlie stared at me for a moment, then let out a little off guard. Then he shook his head again. Freddie's a moron, not a criminal. Are you sure about that? I asked. I hear he was really angry at Kazoo. Who'd you hear that from? Christy again? No, I lied, although I apparently wasn't convincing because Charlie saw right through it. Sounds like you did, he said. More smoke and mirrors. I don't blame you, though. She's a cute one, that Christy. And the cute ones can be very convincing because you want to believe them. A guy who looks at me, though, has a hard enough time trying to get anyone to ever believe the truth. I don't think Freddie's completely clean, I said. I saw him talking to a known criminal today. Charlie laughed again. Oh, you did? And who exactly was this criminal? I don't know his name, I admitted. But he's a big, mean guy who always wears sunglasses and an orange Astros baseball cap. I was looking right into Charlie's eyes as I said this. He didn't betray an ounce of recognition. That's all you've got? He asked. Not even a name? No. I thought you said this guy was a known criminal. You tried to beat someone up here today. Who? I don't know, I lied, but I saw it happen. I was more convincing this time. Charlie bought it. That doesn't make a guy a criminal, he said, just makes him a jerk. Besides, I have no idea who he is or what Freddie Malloy was doing with him. Here's my 2 cents. If you really want to find this koala, take a good hard look at Christy Sullivan. And with that, he stormed out of the changing room. I followed. Where are you going? Home. My shift is over. I'm done. And so is this interrogation. Now leave me alone. I stopped. Charlie kept on going without looking back. Was he right about Christy, I wondered? I had a hard time imagining she could have ever taken Kazoo. But then, as Charlie had suggested, maybe I was letting her off easy because she seemed nice. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked it and found I missed a call from Dad a few minutes before. The costume room had lousy reception. I was about to call back when I got the feeling that someone was watching me. I spun around to find Marge O'Malley leaning against the lamppost. She grinned in a taunting way. What were you talking to Charlie about, Teddy? I wondered how long Marge had been there, and if she had seen me enter the room with the costume earlier. I'm doing your job, I told her, trying to find who stole Kazoo. I know who stole Kazoo, Marge said. You did. And I've got all the proof I need to put you away. In fact, I even picked up a little bonus tidbit of information today that ought to be the final nail in your coffin. I doubted Marge could have recognized a piece of evidence to save her life, but her confidence made me uneasy. What is it? I asked. You'll find out tomorrow, Marge said. After I present my case to J.J. McCracken, you'll be heading straight to the juvie hall. Though the cops might go easy on you if you cough up the koala first. Marge stomped over and fixed me a hard stare. So where is it? I tried to muster my own hard stare in return. I don't know, Marge. I didn't take him. Marge laughed. It sounded evil, like a deep-throated rumble that hippos make. You want to play it like this? That's fine with me. You'll only end up doing more time. She grinned and strode away with an actual bounce in her step. It's going to be a great day tomorrow. The day I finally get rid of Teddy Fitzroy, once and for all. Man, Marge is definitely not looking for another suspect, guys. She is so set on Teddy, she's not seeing any other possibility. All right. Well, how long is chapter 15? Yeah, I got time. Chapter 15, Furious George. According to Dad's message, he was done with his photography session. He grabbed some sandwiches at the Gorilla Grill, and we'd meet up at Mom's office for dinner. Normally, Mom hated eating dinner in her office. She said she spent enough time there during the day. However, it was cold that night, which meant that our trailer would be freezing. And besides, she wanted to keep an eye on Furious George. George was now in chimpanzee solitary, a cell situated right next to Mom's office. There was a large window between them, allowing us to observe George and allowing him to observe us. The cell was really 2 rooms, divided by a wall of bars down the middle, so that someone could be in there with a quarantined animal but not be in danger or hurt. George's side cell was actually quite nice. It wasn't supposed to be a punishment so much as a safe place to take an animal off of display. There were plenty of ropes to climb and toys to play with. George was swinging about looking happy and perfectly mentally balanced. Therefore, Mom wasn't paying much attention to him. Instead, she was completely focused on me. I told her and Dad everything that had happened that day, with one exception. I didn't own up to swiping the kazoo costume, figuring that would get me in trouble. Instead, I said I merely happened to stumble across Freddy and Astro's cop colluding. I still told them that Astro's cap had threatened me, but claimed that he was run off for picking on a kid. Normally, Mom might have seized on the gaps in my story, but that night, she and Dad had too much else to deal with. They listened silently as I recounted facing the bullies, my run-in with Astro's cap, and my conversation with Charlie Connor. But when it was all over, Mom was so worked up, she didn't know what to discuss first. She kept starting to say one thing, then changing her mind and trying to say something else, but finally decided to focus on Vance. I can't believe... Why didn't you... I specifically told you not to. This bullying has gone on far enough. I'm calling her principal again. She reached her office phone, but I blocked her. Mom, don't, I pleaded. That will only make Vance Jessup angrier at me. Don't be ridiculous, Mom told me. The school needs to handle this. Those boys need to be punished. Vance and Tim Jim don't care about being punished, I said, but I know they don't want to face the football players again. I think they'll leave me alone after what happened today. Maybe not, Dad cautioned. And the football team won't always be there to protect you. That's right, Mom echoed. So the next time one of these guys comes at you, Dad said, you just haul off and punch him square in the nose. Jack! Mom gasped. Don't tell Teddy that. It'll only get him in more trouble. He's in enough trouble as it is, Dad countered, then turned back to me. Your average bully is really a coward. He only survives by intimidation. If you fight back, it'll completely catch him off guard. One good sock right there, Dad pointed to his nose. You'll bloody him up nice and good, and he'll never bother you again. Or he'll get angry and pound our son to a pulp, Mom said tartly. He won't, Charlene, Dad said. Trust me, this works. How would you know? Mom asked suspiciously. Have you done this? Dad shrugged. I've dealt with a few bullies in my time. Mom's mouth dropped open. This was obviously news to her. When? In middle school, Dad said. High school, too. And a couple years ago in South Africa, this meathead at a bar tried to shake me down. Enough, Mom said, before he could go on. Teddy, don't listen to your father. Violence is never the answer. Promise me that you won't try to fight anymore. I glanced at my father. Behind Mom's back, he signaled me to say yes, though when Mom looked at him, he pretended to be scratching his head. Okay, I said, but right now I'm more worried about Astros Gap than Vance Jessup. Mom put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Oh, I doubt he'll threaten you again. He was probably just trying to scare you off. I'm not worried about him hurting me, I said. I'm worried about what he's up to. What do you mean? Mom asked. Well, Freddy was already angry at Fung Jungle, I explained, so maybe he hired this guy to get rid of Kazoo, but the guy's still hanging around. That doesn't make any sense unless they're planning to do something else nasty. Something to Shark Odyssey, maybe? Mom and Dad shared a look, mulling this over, but neither seemed to be completely buying it. We don't really have any evidence that this Astros guy had anything to do with Kazoo, Dad told me. All we know is that he was at the scene of the crime after it happened, like a lot of other people, and that he knows Freddy. He looked suspicious, I said. He got all really upset when he thought I was following him. That doesn't make him a criminal, Mom said. And no matter how angry Freddie Malloy was, I can't imagine him hiring anyone to get rid of Kazoo. He loves animals. No one would even attempt to show like he if they didn't. I sighed, frustrated by my parents' arguments, and then I thought of something else. Arthur Connick also might have taken Kazoo, and all the excitement with Astros Cap, I'd completely forgotten about Arthur. Mom and Dad stared at me, surprised. Why do you say that? Dad inquired. I overheard him trying to sell something to someone today. He was being really suspicious and asking for a lot of money. Did he mention Kazoo specifically? Mom asked. No, I said, but he said he'd taken a big risk to get whatever he was selling, and that if people found out, he could go to jail. Mom and Dad shared an intrigued look. Sounds like he's definitely up to something, Dad agreed. It does, but Arthur's a good caring keeper. I can't see him taking Kazoo either. Well, someone had to, I exclaimed, and if we can't figure out who, I'm going to jail for this. What about Charlie Connor? Mom suggested. We know he has a criminal background. Charlie actually had some good reasons to explain why he hadn't done it, I said. He said he didn't have the slightest idea about how to steal or fence a koala. Well, you wouldn't expect him to admit that he did, would you? Dad asked. No, but I still believe him. I hesitated before Charlie said we ought to consider Christy. Mom recoiled slightly. Christy? Why would she steal Kazoo? To get a koala, I answered. Charlie said that she knew the koala exhibit better than anyone. Mom shook her head. No one who knew anything about koalas would steal one. They're virtually impossible to care for. I thought back to Christy and how concerned she had been about Kazoo. It was hard to imagine her faking that to throw me off her trail. She was the one who had told me that Kazoo had such a specialized diet and that he'd starved to wasn't rescued soon. If she knew that, why would she take him? I'm just telling you what Charlie told me, I said. Well, Charlie is wrong, Mom told me. I think we can rule out Chrissy. What about the other koala keepers, Dad suggested? There were like 3 of them, right? Elizabeth and shoot, I can't remember the third. Ashley Thomas, Mom said. They worked with Kazoo less than Christy did, but they all had to learn just as much about koalas, and all of them would have known the extreme difficulties involved in caring for Kazoo. Maybe they didn't do it to get it for a pet for themselves, I said. Maybe some rich collector like Flora Hancock paid them to steal a koala fur. She has enough money to buy all the. None of those keepers would have stolen Kazoo, Mom said flatly. Maybe Arthur Connick stole him for Flora Hancock, I said. I don't think any keeper would steal a zoo animal, Mom told me. Well, whoever did it had to know how to get in and out without being seen, I argued, which means the thief had to know the koala exhibit really well. And if it wasn't a keeper, then who was it? What about one of the contractors who built the exhibit? Dad suggested. Suppose some carpenter had his eye on Kazoo all along. Maybe he knows Flora Hancock is willing to pay big bucks for a koala. So he builds a secret entrance into the exhibit, bides his time for a few weeks, and sneaks into the zoo one night and swipes Kazoo. Mom frowned at him. You really think so? Dad shrugged. It's always possible. And it explains how the thief got Kazoo without showing up on the tape. Even if Christy or Arthur or this Astroscap guy took the koala, we still haven't figured out how they did it without going through the door. Maybe Astroscap was one of the carpenters, I exclaimed. Maybe Freddy approached him at some point during the construction of the exhibit and they came up with a plan to steal Kazoo. Or maybe he works for the company that installed the security system here. Dad was getting excited now. Maybe he built his own security access code, which would explain how he got into the koala exhibit and Shark Odyssey. And he might know how to override the security cameras so he could get in and out without being recorded. He and I both looked at Mom expectantly. The frown hadn't left her face. That seems awfully far-fetched, she said. Maybe, but it's still possible, Dad countered. In fact, I'd say it's the best we've come up with so far. He then turned to me. What did you do with his license plate number? I called Summer, I told him. She's going to pass that to her father. She says he knows some people that can trace it. We ought to pass it on to Marge, too, Mom recommended. She won't do anything with it, I said. All she cares about is framing me for this. Mom sighed. Marge may have a chip on her shoulder where you're concerned, but she's still in charge of security here. She should know about this. Maybe if it comes from one of us rather than you, she will take it more seriously. I guess it can't hurt, I said dutifully. I dutifully wrote down the license plate number from my mom, who began to text it to Marge. And while we're at it, we should let her know about Arthur Connick, too. Mom paused mid-text. Teddy, for the last time, I don't see Arthur doing this. Well, he was selling something that he wasn't supposed to have, I argued. Even if it was a kazoo, Marge should know about it. Good point. Mom went back to composing her message. Did you say there was footage of this Astros cap online? Dad asked. Maybe we could forward that to Marge and the McCrackens as well. Sure, I said. I'll see if I can find it. I got on Mom's computer feeling more upbeat than I had in a while. Astroscat being a construction worker was certainly the best explanation we could come up with to explain how Kazoo had been taken. And there was no shortage of people he could have been working for. Freddy, Arthur, Flora, if not a combination of any of them. There was only one thing that still nagged at me. What had Astroscat been doing at Shark Odyssey? It took me a few tries to find the right YouTube video. A dozen more recordings of the disaster at Koalaville had been uploaded since launch. But I eventually located it. We watched it play on the computer. Mom, who had only heard about the events from Dad and me, just shook her head in dismay as they unfolded before her. Dad, who had lived through it, stood behind her, struggling to keep from laughing. Finally, the camera settled on Astro's cap, and I paused the video. There, I said, that's him. Dad zoomed in so that Astro's cap's face would fill the screen, then squinted at the pixelated. It's not easy to make him out with the glasses and hat, he said. I might have seen him before, but I can't. How about you, hon? He looked at Mom. He seems familiar to me, Mom said, though I can't figure out why. Maybe we saw him around one of the construction sites, Dad began, though he didn't get to finish his thought because Furious George suddenly went nuts. He'd been so quiet up until then, even Mom had forgotten about him. Now he let out a nerve-jangling scream that made all of us jump out of our seats. We spun around to find him racing around his cell like a maniac. He bounded off the walls, flinging everything he could get his hands on, screeching the entire time. Every few seconds he would return to the viewing window and pound on it so hard I thought he might break through. Most people don't realize that chimps have extremely sharp teeth. The sight of George gnashing them with rage in his eyes was terrifying. I had never seen him like this. In fact, I had never seen him be anything other than sweet and kind. Mom sensed I was frightened and put a hand on my shoulder to calm me. It's all right, she said. He's not trying to get to us. Something else triggered this reaction. Like what? Dad asked. He's in solitary. He can't see anything but us. Something must have changed. We weren't doing anything. We were only looking at a computer. She trailed off and turned toward the computer. I looked that way too on the screen. The full view of Furious George was a blown up photo of Astra's cap. It's him, I said. Mom wiped the photo from the computer. George calmed down almost as quickly as he flipped out. He stopped banging on the glass and baring his teeth. The rage in his eyes was replaced by a pained, almost ashamed expression, as though he was embarrassed about his behavior. Could that man have done something to him? Dad asked. Perhaps. Mom had a faraway look in her eyes, which she'd gotten when she was trying to solve a problem. But like you said, it was hard to make him out, and George was a lot further away from the computer than we were. He wouldn't have been able to recognize a specific person. I wonder if he was responding to something else instead. Like what? I asked. What he was wearing. Mom returned her attention to the computer and did a Google image search. Orange baseball caps. Get ready, she told me. This might get scary again. The monitor filled with photos of people wearing orange caps. Mom clicked on one and then stepped aside so Furious George could see it. Excuse me. Again, he went nuts. 1 second he was calm, and the next he was screeching and banging on the glass. Mom wiped the screen once more, and George went back to his normal self. Mom came to the viewing window and placed her palm against it. You poor thing, she said sadly. You poor, poor thing. George put his hand on the other side of the glass, so his palm was facing hers. It's all right, she told him. You're going to be okay now. What's going on? I asked. George's behavior is consistent with an ape that has been abused, Mom said. I can't say for sure whether or not the man in the video did it, but it seems quite evident that whoever did was wearing an orange baseball cap. I sat down feeling like the wind had been knocked out of me. Even though I'd seen plenty of examples of humanity's cruelty, they still always caught me off guard. Do you think it was someone here? Dad asked. Mom shook her head. It wouldn't have been any of my people, and the exhibits are designed to prevent any visitors from harming an animal on display. I suspect that it was done to George before he arrived. He has only been here a few months. Where was he before that? I asked. A research facility in Houston, Mom replied. Home of the Astros, Dad said. Probably a lot of orange baseball caps there. Mom nodded, then swiveled her computer monitor so George could no longer see it and opened a folder filled with movie files. What are those? I asked. Video of the security camera that faces the crowd in the chimp exhibit, Mom told me. Fun Jungle records everything that the camera sees, keeps it for 2 weeks. Why just 2 weeks? I inquired. There are over 10,000 cameras at this park, Dad explained. Oh, the video takes up a huge amount of memory. The servers aren't big enough to keep everything forever, so security only holds on to what's important. Like this, Mom pointed at the video clips. I asked security to send me the feeds from the exact times that George had an episode. I've gone over them a few times already, figuring that something in the crowd might be triggering him, but until now, I didn't know what to look for. She clicked on a file the previous morning. The camera footage filled her screen. It was grainy and shot from an angle near the ceiling. It was almost impossible to make out anyone's face. A timestamp at the bottom of the screen showed the film was starting at 10:55 a.m. There were 16 people in the crowd. One of them was wearing an orange baseball cap. It wasn't Astros cap, just a random visitor. There, Dad said. Got him. Mom then brought up the next video, which was from 3 days before, at 1:37 in the afternoon. The crowd was much bigger this time. There was a group of elementary children on a field trip. It took us a bit longer to find a kid in an orange baseball cap. There, I said. Looks like we have our trigger, Mom sighed. I can't believe I didn't notice this before. Don't blame yourself, Dad said. It's almost impossible to see until you know what you're looking for. Mom nodded, but still looked upset at herself. She brought up a third video to confirm her theory. It was from the week before, just after 3 in the afternoon. There were only 5 people this time. It wasn't hard to find the man in the orange baseball cap. Hey, that's Astro's cap. Mom paused the video and enlarged it. It wasn't a great picture given the angle of the security camera, but it was definitely looked like the guy I had seen around. He had the same thick build, was wearing sunglasses, even though he was inside. Looks like he's been spending a lot of time around here, Dad says suspiciously. Before I could respond, a phone rang. Mom snapped up the receiver. Charlene Fitzroy. The person on the other line said something I couldn't hear, but it made Mom look toward me. Surprised. Yes, he's here, she said, but I am his mother. Whatever you need to say to him, you could say to me. She then listened, nodding a few times. All right, she said. I'll give him the message. She hung up and rolled her eyes. Who was that? I asked. The personal assistant to J.J. McCracken, Mom replied. The boss wants to see you first thing tomorrow. And that's where I'm going to leave it, guys. Teddy is going to have his showdown, looks like, with J.J. McCracken. Don't have a whole lot to go on yet. Things don't look good. So we will find out what happens to Teddy tomorrow. I will again post on Dojo the link and with the announcement of when I'll be going live. Like I said, my goal is to try to go live at 11 o'clock this week. That seems to fit with what I know of my schedule this week. Also, families, as a reminder, tomorrow is also my office hours, which my Read-Aloud will be during. So there will be a window of about 2 to 3 hours tomorrow from like 10 to noon. If you guys have any questions or concerns that you would like my help with to address, that would be the time that I'd be available to do it. So keep your questions coming in if you have them, and I'll do my best to try to answer any or alleviate any concerns and questions at that time tomorrow. So I am going to sign off now. Looks like another beautiful spring day in Michigan, one of those rare days. If you have the opportunity to go outside, guys, I recommend you guys go outside and do something fun. All right, it's Mr. G signing off. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you tomorrow.